implies more than just politeness. It proves that you were raised well, or you simply know better, so you do better. Good manners are free. Let us embrace being true Jamaicans by having good manners.
That brings us to the end of today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. You can stay connected with us online at jis.gov.jm and on our social media platforms. On behalf of the entire production team here at the JIS, I'm Jabertha Atkinson. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.
The price of oil has become the price of everything. A war being fought 10,000 kilometers from Kingston has arrived at your gas station, your supermarket, and your light bill. Tonight, the Minister of Energy tells us directly the buffer is gone. Jamaicans must now brace for the full force of what the Strait of Hormuz crisis has done to global oil markets. We'll press Minister Darrell Vaz on the numbers, on the plan, and whether the government's call for sacrifice applies to the state as much as it applies to you. Then, an independent economist audits the decision to buffer oil prices in the first place. Was it the right call? And would Jamaicans be better positioned today if the government had passed on the real cost from the beginning? And later, an explosive ruling from World Athletics. 4 of Jamaica's biggest names in track and field, including the reigning Olympic discus champion, tried to switch their competitive allegiance to Turkey ahead of the Los Angeles 2028 Olympics. Tonight, the world governing body has told them no. We'll tell you what that means for those athletes, for Jamaica, and for the sport. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and this is Lead Story. Between March 12 and April 8 of this year, the real increase in transport fuel prices in Jamaica in total averaged $49.20 per litre. You at the gas pumps? Well, Jamaicans only really felt $18 of that almost $50. Petrojam, the state-owned refinery, absorbed the rest, running up losses of between 1.3 and 1.4 billion Jamaican dollars in just 4 weeks. We've been tracking this story inside Lead Story now for weeks, taking you across the world as countries were putting in place measures to deal with the fallout from the Strait of Hormuz. Well, it finally made its way here to Jamaica, because yesterday, Minister of Energy Darrell Vaz told Jamaicans that arrangement is over at Petrojam. The $4.50 weekly price cap is being replaced by a new tiered pricing mechanism. And the message from the minister was blunt. If the old cap had been maintained until June, it would have cost the government $11.8 billion. 2/3 of all the money the government planned to make this year. Well, that's a stress here, and something that we want to explore with Minister Darrell Vaz, Minister of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications, tonight. As he joins us, it's important for us to remember that we've been having this conversation and watching countries around the world try to grapple with this. We told you stories of countries in Asia that have now made Wednesdays work from home days. There are other countries like Nepal, if you want a cylinder of gas, you can only get it half filled. Other countries having children stay at home and work from home for adults. Something that we're now hearing being proposed, reversal of positions that we have been hearing otherwise, that we're fine, that we'll make it. We're now being told that it might just be best for us as a nation to save and to conserve energy, making sure that we either stay at home or drive less. Or in cases where we can, make sure that if we are consuming energy, we're aware of the cost. This might be a national saving exercise, one that we asked for the nation to do inside COVID, but we absolutely then understood what it is that the minister now has to look at, contemplating the circumstances here in Jamaica. Let's first start you off with Minister Darrell Vaz talking yesterday about the reality that this country faces and why it's so important for us to make sure we conserve. I'll turn you over to our reporter, Carla Randine.
Darrell Vaz told a journalist on Wednesday that Petrojam has been subsidizing gasoline prices since the U.S.-Israel war on Iran in February. The energy minister says if this continues until June, it will cost the government up to $11.8 billion, which he says is unaffordable and unsustainable.
The bottom line, gasoline prices would have risen by about $26.77 per litre without the cap, while diesel prices would increase much more, between $65 and $75 per litre. While the current mechanism has been effective in cushioning consumers, it has resulted in significant financial losses by Petrojam, $1.3 to $1.4 billion in 4 weeks, which was not passed on to the consumers.
Driven by the ongoing fallout from the war, he says the new pricing mechanism will entail a tiered approach, where prices will be aligned to global price movements, allowing Petrojam to be more responsive to price volatility.
Let me be blatantly, truthfully, upfront, in your face. The government of Jamaica cannot stomach $11.8 billion with all of what we have to do and the contending priorities. And anybody who tell you any different, I'm sure they will after this press conference. Rubbish. No government in a situation like this can sustain that.
Minister Vaz is urging the public to conserve energy, adding that the government will meet and discuss policies to limit transportation movement that will aid in reducing the use of fuel.
And so you just heard there Minister of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications, Darrell Vaz, talking to the nation about the reality of what was going on. But we have the minister live inside Lead Story tonight to hear from him directly. Thanks so much for joining us, Minister Vaz, inside Lead Story.
Afternoon to you and your viewers and your listeners in Jamaica.
Glad to have you. Minister, as you speak to us now, help us better understand. Between March 12 and April 8, the real price of fuel, the fuel increase here in Jamaica was $49.20 per litre. Jamaicans only paid $18 and they were still cussing. But at what particular point did the government conclude that continuing to absorb it was no longer possible? Was there a specific barrel price that triggered the decision, or just the assessment that you made that if we make it all the way to June, we would be spending $11.8 billion?
So the assessment continued from March. And basically, I realized that the movement from about $70 to rough $100 had been pretty much static. And when I realized that there was no end in sight based on the broken negotiations that were taking place, I realized and I decided to go to Cabinet on Monday and to give them the full understanding of where we are and what were the projections. And of course, that is what led to the decisions that were taken to remove the price cap of the $4.50 per week up or down and put in a tier system So depending on what the prices are, the Petrojam prices every Wednesday. They have a pricing committee. So basically, as of next week, Wednesday, they will look and see what the prices are, the international market prices, and then they will move accordingly. But what we have done is to put in a tier system. So 3 tiers, the $4.50 will be the lowest. And of course, 2 other tiers that they will come up with as they go along based on the international market prices. But bottom line is, even if we go to end of May, the government still will have to absorb significant costs to cushion the impact, to make sure that we don't reach a stage where it becomes unaffordable and becomes counterproductive to the economy.
Minister Vaz, is there a cap or a ceiling to these tiers? Because $4.50 is the floor. Are we looking at something where we could be, because of the price fluctuation in the oil markets, looking at Petrojam saying take the full amount? Let's say if it goes up $80, we'll take all the $80 at the pump?
No. So the tiered system will definitely have some protection in it, but I don't have the exact numbers. But in terms of what we were discussing, $4.50, maybe $7, and maybe $12, that kind of range. But nothing has been concluded as yet. But we decided that would be the best scenario as of right now. But as you know, we're going to have to watch this thing day by day. And of course, Cabinet meets every Monday and the pricing committee meets every Wednesday. So this will be top of the list at the beginning of every Cabinet meeting. And if necessary, and there's need to have a special one, then we will do that. Because as I said yesterday, and I want to repeat it for all your viewers and your listeners, because Petrojam was taking the brunt of the increases and not passing it on, I'm not quite sure if Jamaicans, especially those who use a lot of fuel, realized the magnitude of the problem in terms of the price increases and what it would do, not only to the country but to the people.
Well, talk to me about what those price increases could do, because you said the 11.8 that we were projecting up until June was unaffordable for the country. What would we have to give up, hypothetically, if we were to spend 11.8 billion Jamaican dollars to now push and to keep this?
Well, first of all, $11.8 billion is 1/3 of the recently tabled
revenue measures.
Budget measures.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can just imagine, I mean, that would affect everything in terms of what a government must provide: social services, infrastructure, the whole 9 yards. And as I said yesterday, and I'll say it again, coming on the heels of Melissa, coming on the heels of Beryl, and coming on the heels of a pandemic, anybody, any entity, any political organization that would come and say that they could stomach the $11.8 billion is just outright.
Well, one of them has said it. Opposition spokesperson Philip Powell will be talking about that after the break here inside Lead Story.
All right. So.
Me and the stylist, no scam and style me.
From the market to the farm to the office, money talk is everywhere. But are you making sense or nonsense? The Bank of Jamaica brings you common sense with BOJ, real stories, real laughs, and real lessons to help you protect, grow, and manage your money. Mattress savings.
At least my mattress, no charge me to sleep on it.
Partner plan.
Remember last year we needed our payouts early? But Miss Pam gave it to her cousin first.
Or a sketchy loan flyer.
Electrifying deals.
See why making the right financial choices is pure common sense. Brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, empowering everyday Jamaicans one episode at a time.
Grandpa, it's 2026. You can't keep hiding all your money in every single pocket forever.
notice how life nice when you eat good? Natural feed, fresh grass, no stress. Stress? I don't know her. They say happy cows make better milk. Well, just look how happy we are. And I'm sure you can taste the difference. So move to the best milk ever. True milk.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The Time by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Welcome back to Lead Story. We continue our conversation with Minister of Energy, Darrell Vaz. Minister Vaz, before the break, you were asked a question about the feedback from opposition spokesman Philip Paulwell. He's pointed to a projected $2.4 billion Petrojam profit this year and asked whether consumer relief is a choice rather than an impossibility. I want to give you a chance to respond to that. Do you think that that's an unreasonable position for him as opposition spokesman to take?
First of all, the Petrojam has been losing money, as has been reported in the Standing Finance Committee. It was projected to make a small profit this year, and I believe based on what is happening now, that is going to be wiped out, because whatever is the losses that Petrojam is going to make as a result of this would have to come from the consolidated fund, which is already set in terms of the budget for this year. So I suspect that any margins or any profit that Petrojam would be making would have to go towards offsetting the effects of this war. And I just want to say very clearly that anything other than what we are doing now would create a very simple scenario. Either heavy cuts in infrastructure, health, education, security, roads, or new taxes on the already burdened Jamaicans as a result of this. So we have decided to just pivot, protect the fiscal space needed to do the other things, and to work to see how we can balance this scenario with the Jamaican people.
Well, you spoke to the Jamaican people yesterday at that post-cabinet press briefing and said, hi, you need to conserve. Not even today, yesterday. You need to be making sure that you are saving Jamaica's precious energy. Starting now, what does that look like in practical terms for a Jamaican listening to you?
So I'm happy you raised that, because obviously there's been several different interpretations of what I said, and of course, different comments, etc. My only thing that I wanted to do yesterday was basically just to signal to Jamaica the seriousness of where we are, what we have had to do, which is going to create additional increase in the prices as we can't cushion them as much as we were since March, and to let them understand that if this continues, then we will have to find ways for conservation. I didn't say which way or what, but what I can say for sure is it definitely is going to require. And of course, there's many different models for that. I could never take that decision on my own.
Not take the decision, but the International Energy Agency, for example, a few weeks ago sent out to European countries letting them know, drive slow, 50 kilometers an hour saves you fuel, turn off electricity at home, make sure that if you have single trips or you can carpool, do that. Is that the kind of thing that you were talking to Jamaicans about? Because you've also had made comments about traffic on the road, for example.
Yeah, that is one aspect of it. Whether that in itself will be enough, we don't know. As a matter of fact, as I said before, I don't see any sign of any resolution to this Middle East crisis. And the longer it goes, is the worse that it is for everybody. But what I'm saying to you is that There have been several other things that have been put out there before, flexi work week, all sorts of different things. And I'm not pronouncing. All I'm saying to Jamaica is definitively, if this thing continues, the only way that we're going to get through it is to change from normal times to emergency times.
Emergency times that you referenced as COVID times, and this reminded people of the work from home.
I never mentioned COVID. As a matter of fact, when I speak about emergency times in recent times, it was Melissa.
All right.
When we were talking about procurement and all of those things. And I'm saying you can't do the same things that you do in normal times. In times of emergencies
work
and
from
disasters.
home, though, is something that we have recently and you signal that a hybrid work from home arrangement, speaking to Minister Dixon, for example, Education Minister, saying there might have to be some consideration about what happens with the children, especially as we have a national energy conservation strategy. But does that mean that if people are working from home, they're the ones that have to pay the fuel bill as opposed to now an electricity bill that's expensive for the country?
You carry me too far down the road. So you have had things that have been thrown out and discussed. Minister Marks, Minister Dixon, myself. This will have to be a cabinet decision, and it will have to be looked at very carefully to see what the pros and cons are, because what you don't want to do is do things that don't give you the results that you want. And I'm saying to you that as of right now, Minister Dixon said yesterday at the post-cabinet that the government has taken no decision in relation to any of those matters as yet. And I am saying to Jamaica, we may not have said it as yet, but it is something, if this continues, that is going to be inevitable.
We have watched,
I'd like to just talk straight.
And I think that's important for Jamaicans to hear from you as well. We've watched countries, and we've spoken about it here inside Lead Story, indicate that they can't fill up full fuel cylinders. So if you want a gas cylinder, you can only get half a cylinder. They've had work from home days. Some countries, Wednesday, everybody stays home. They have put in place work from home arrangements, everything that's there. But they've also put subsidies in place, or rather QR codes in place, telling buses and taxi operators you can only get so much gas. I talked to you about that because your portfolio also includes transportation. And Lead Story has information that there are less buses commuters are seeing on the road. And the Half a Tree Transport Center, they're seeing less JUTC buses as well since Monday. Is that a response to commercial operators and the JUTC seeing the increase in prices, or this is for you not connected just yet?
No policy direction has been given as it relates to JUTC. As a matter of fact, we are very lucky that the majority of the JUTC fleet is operated on CNG, which is a derivative of LNG. So that is a big, big boost for us and a big savior, because we get our LNG out of the United States. So that would not impact us. As a matter of fact, based on the decision to go with cleaner energy, that is a big plus for us at JUTC, as it is with JPS, because quite a bit of the fuel that they use for the grid is also LNG.
That's liquefied natural gas that they are getting from the United States.
That's correct. So all I'm saying to you is that if that is being seen, that's very good. I'm happy to hear that. I know that that's not a fact for JUTC.
But other bus and taxi operators, have they, because they've also asked for their increase, saying that they're dealing with the pressure as well. They can't work from home. They can't conserve.
And I agree 100%. And that is also something that is going to have to come on the table as well, because with the increases in fuel costs, etc., and the increase of the 16% that's still outstanding to them. Now that comes also to the fore as well, because obviously it's costing more to operate. So we have a lot of juggling to do, and we're going to have to do it in tandem, in unity, as one Jamaica, because the minute we start with the tit for tat, which is why I'm not even responding to the arguments that are on social media about the hedging and who did the hedging.
Something that the opposition has raised, saying that with opposition leaders saying that the hedge could have helped us at a time like this.
Hindsight is 2020, and unfortunately, that has no bearing on where we are today, and I'm only looking forward as to what can we do as a country and a people to ease the burdens of this crisis that we have nothing to do with.
Help
we
us.
are own.
We don't set up the war. We didn't get involved in the war, but we might have to deal with the consequences of the war. And one of those consequences is increase in fuel prices mean increases in the cost of agriculture, and it cuts into the profits for businesses. Have you been able to speak with some of your colleague ministers, agriculture, commerce, to see what happens next?
We discussed on Monday. And there's going to be an interministerial committee that is going to be set up with all of the critical ministries who have to manage this, because obviously we all have to work together and in tandem to make sure that whatever we do, we know what the effects are on the various important sectors that keep this country going. So we are proactive, and I think the cabinet meeting on Monday, the presentation by Petrojam and my ministry, and what came out at Postcab yesterday has changed the mindset of the Jamaican people from last week to this week, and I now believe that everybody is now focusing on exactly where we are and what are the possible effects, continued effects on us. We're going to work with the GMA, we're going to work with the private sector organization, we're going to work with everybody, because this is an all of Jamaica approach.
Never waste a crisis, though, Minister. There have been some conversations that say, hi, this is a great time to push renewable energy. As an energy minister who has a basket of energy resources that you can pull for, is this a time where we can decouple from the need to import oil and perhaps move to a place where we're in a stronger position in years to come?
So we have a mandate already of 50% renewables by 2030. It started at 30%. We have already done one RFP, and we have another RFP for renewables that are going to come out in November.
So requests for proposals from individuals to help you with this process?
No, not to actually provide energy solutions. And bottom line is, obviously, 2030 is a lifetime away when you consider where we are today in 2026, but we are on that track. And the fact is that, as I said before, we moved from heavy oil with the JUTC to CNG. JPS moved from the heavy oil to mix it with LNG. So we are going slowly, but what we have to find a way is to go faster. And I can tell you that right now, that there are some things in my ministry that have been languishing, that net billing and other matters, that I am going to have to get fast-tracked and put them as a priority so that people can use that to benefit and to ease some of the burdens that they are facing now.
And I think it's going to be so important, especially as you asked Jamaicans to conserve yesterday, that those things not only are on the minds of Jamaicans, but also on the minds of those within your ministry. Minister Darrell Vaz, Minister of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications.
You have my assurance, and the country has my assurance, that you will be updated and kept abreast, and it's an open, transparent government that is going to tell you as it is, and we are on board to take all recommendations.
All right, well, we certainly will be hearing more from you, Minister Vaz. Thank you so much for joining us.
All the best to you. Thank you so much.
Good to have you. All right, when we return, an independent economic audit of the government's decision to buffer oil prices. Was it the right call? We'll talk about that next here inside Lead Story.
It to the farm, to the office. Money talk is everywhere. But are you making sense or nonsense? The Bank of Jamaica brings you common sense with BOJ. Real stories, real laughs, and real lessons to help you protect, grow, and manage your money. Mattress savings.
At least my mattress. You charge me to sleep on it.
Partner plan.
Remember last year we needed our payouts early? But Miss Pam gave it to her cousin first.
Our sketchy loan flyer?
Electrifying deals.
See why making the right financial choices is pure common sense. Brought
Can you do this?
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out, don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Welcome back. The government has made its fiscal case removing the Petrojam cap. But independent economic analysis demands a harder question. We just heard from Minister Vaz saying that the buffer was there. But was the buffer the right thing, the right thing to have in the first place? Was it the right policy decision? And does the manner in which the cap is now being removed expose Jamaican households to a compressed shock that could have been managed differently? Joining me now is economist Dr. Damien King. Dr. King, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. King, Jamaicans are we're looking and we're seeing that the government is telling us through Minister Varel Vaz that they absorbed $1.3 to $1.4 billion in Petrojam losses to shield Jamaicans from the full $49.20 per litre increase. Was that the right decision?
That was the first mistake. Not the fact of the shielding or the buffering, but the language that the government can shield Jamaica. The government is part of Jamaica. The government moves resources from taxpayers to expenditures. So when the price of oil goes up, it means that collectively we can't afford to consume as much of everything as we could before. The government cannot save us from that. It's a reality. The minister said that in the absence of removing the buffer, the price cap, then he said the government would have had to absorb a $12 billion loss. It's not the government that's going to absorb that. It's the taxpayers, because that's where the government gets money. So the government can only move the effect of it on consumers from paying for it in electricity bills and at the gas pump to paying for it with taxes. And here's why it makes a difference. When the government has to absorb a $12 billion cost, and they therefore have to either cut back on public services, we don't get a choice. We just don't have the public services anymore. We don't have the street lights on. We don't have the public transportation. We don't have the public health measures.
But we're being told that we chose not to do that this time.
And we can't afford, and we can't avoid the taxes. But if the government allows the price increase to come through, in terms of a higher price for gas, for example, then we have a choice. Then we can exercise the choice of cutting back on transportation, cutting back on our usage of high energy, effects.
So people just drive less, turn off the lights, and be aware now of the pressure.
We can do. If it comes through as a higher price of energy, there are things that we can do to mitigate it. When the government shields us from the higher price of energy and then comes back next year and says, okay, now you pay for it in taxes, we can't do anything about it. So that makes us worse off.
It might make us worse off, but today we're looking at the removal of the cap. That's going to be happening, we're being told, next week. It is, as far as I'm aware, going to send a compressed price shock throughout the economy all at once. Food inflation was already at 7.1% in 2025. We're looking now at pressures. What's your assessment of the kind of pressure and the inflationary trajectory that Jamaica is now on come next week?
Yes, but again, that allows us to mitigate it ourselves by shifting our consumption from high energy using products and services to low energy using products and services. You know, when the world price of coffee goes up and you're a household that buys both coffee and cocoa, then you can minimize your purchase of coffee and drink more cocoa. So that's the kind of choice that we want to face. There's nothing that the government can do to protect us completely from a higher price of oil.
It sounds rough to somebody who went to the gas station, though, Dr. King. Saw gas prices to fill up their tank at $7,000. Now it's $12,000, $13,000. And to hear that this potential cost of living crisis, this
government
this
did
stress.
not start the war.
But we still have to deal with the
blame
prices.
the government for that. Not this government, anyway.
Yes. But the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran and then the further conflagration into a wider conflict has now led us to where we are. At what point does an energy price shock become then a cost of living crisis for us? Because food, for example, other sectors, construction, transport, those are vulnerable to the effects now of the price of oil going up. Are we looking to see that in the next 3 to 6 months?
Okay, but Julian, this is just hand-wringing. It has happened, and there's nothing a small, vulnerable country can do about it. It's no different from Melissa. There's nothing we could have done about the fact that Melissa wiped out half of our annual GDP in an afternoon. And the roads have to be rebuilt, and the utility poles have to go back up, and the bridges have to be, rebuilt. The infrastructure has to be put back in place. So the hand-wringing and the saying, boy, this is really hard. Yes, it is. And we understand that. But to expect that there's something your government can do to make you pretend it didn't happen is just self-delusion.
Aye. What is then more productive use of our time? If we can't then decide that you're not creating a war, you don't have oil supplies, even though we hear that we might be drilling by the end of the year, at least test wells. What is it then that Jamaicans should be focused on, Dr. King?
Well, in your interview with the minister, you asked him about the country switching to renewables. The greatest incentive for both individuals and businesses and power providers have to switch to renewables is, what do you think that would be? The high cost of fossil fuel energy. So when the government tries to buffer that, it is disincentivizing people from thinking about switching to renewables.
So that economic argument that subsidies, however well-intentioned, delay that structural adjustment, that is what then we have seen. Is this the time to make the switch? Is this good timing, or is this too pressured a time to make the sort of transition to more renewable energy?
I mean, to be fair, Jamaica has been on the road of moving towards renewable for some time, and the minister did say that. And that process is underway, and RFPs have been issued, in that regard. So this impetus was hardly needed. But I think it's important to bear in mind in this discussion that we end up making ourselves worse off by using a buffer to continue to overconsume something that has become unsustainably expensive. Because we end up paying for the overconsumption eventually later on anyway, in higher taxes next year, or if government borrows the money, in higher taxes the year before that. So there's an extent to, so while you want to have hedges in place, there's an extent to which, if there's something is unavoidable, that the government needs to expose the country to that. And equally important, to identify which are the most vulnerable parts of society, who are the neediest persons, and then look at how they can mitigate that with active support on the expenditure side.
Is that giving cash grants, for example, or the Jamaica Poverty Energy Program that we have, pulling people out of energy poverty, those sorts of direct contributions, or others that you think?
Cash grants are a great idea. We have a cash transfer program called PATH that already identifies who are the neediest and most vulnerable members of society, and contributing to that so that people can pay the higher tax fare that we are going to face is better targeted than subsidizing upper middle class people with their SUV, gas guzzlers, and air conditioning.
So is that what this subsidy would have been doing? Because I did see you make a statement about that as well on social media, saying that the people who use more fuel, more electricity, were the ones that seem to, it appears, were better protected thanks now to this pricing policy by Petrojam.
Yeah, I mean, that's fairly obvious that, energy consumption varies directly with incomes and wealth. And so the extent to which you are using your precious resources to subsidize the consumption of energy is the extent to which almost nearly all of that is going to the people who are better off in society. So that's another dimension of it. But the dimension I really want to focus on is it's really more important to incentivize people to conserve rather than to not do so and then come with sort of more unnecessarily harsh measures like implementing work from home and have rationing.
Yes, QR codes are already in place across the world.
That is too soon to be effective.
Well, for many Jamaicans now looking at the variety of options around the world, seeing something like 70 countries already implement some sort of internal mechanism to deal with it, to talk to Jamaicans. Because on behalf of every Jamaican household tonight, they're hearing you, they're hearing the minister, and they're trying to plan. What exactly does conservation look like for them, and how long a pain is this that should last? Because we came out of COVID to burial to Melissa to now this. People are tired, Dr. King.
No. The lesson from that is that we live in a small, vulnerable, risky country and economic environment. So this is a reality that every 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years, there is going to be some disruption to our standard of living. So we need to inculcate that in all of our decision making from the very start. And the government itself needs to be more fiscally resilient so that when these things come along, they have the resources saved up, accumulated, hedged, to be able to smooth out our consumption patterns.
You use the word hedge there. Just want to make sure. Are we talking about the gas hedge that the opposition has spoken of as well, saying that would have helped us in the situation, or is it hedging the sort of protection in a broader, more general sense?
Well, both of those. That the oil hedge would have been useful at this time, but other more general ways of hedging against volatility are important if you live in a climatologically and economically vulnerable country.
All right, that was a sobering there from you, but economist Dr. Damian King, thank you for that analysis. Nobody at home right now is smiling because Dr. King said, listen, where you live, these are the problems that you're going to face. Thank you much, though, for talking to us about this and helping Jamaicans get over the hand-wringing and realize the reality of our lives. Still ahead on Lead Story, explosive developments in Jamaican athletics. Roger Stoner, Jaden Hibbert, Wayne Pinnock, Virginia Campbell, 4 of Jamaica's biggest names in track and field trying to switch their competitive allegiance to Turkey. Tonight, they were told no. We find out why next.
Want to see save our country right now.
One thing about Jamaicans, we might have differences, but we know when something is good for all of us. And when we work together against crime and violence, we are stronger than ever. And that's how we know the Citizen Security Plan can work.
That one that name CSP.
The Citizen Security Plan is an initiative of the Ministry of National Security in partnership with the European Union. It's an all-of-government effort to create safer streets and build stronger communities. Go to mns.gov.jm to learn how you can play your part.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jody Ann Quarry.
Brought to you by Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services.
It's the creativity on the left. Brilliant. Worth every penny. Haaland into O'Reilly.
It's a step over there. He walks past him, and then it's just a bit of magic.
Opening up for a shot for Moises Caicedo.
Welcome back. In a ruling handed down today, the World Athletics Nationality Review Panel rejected the applications of 11 elite athletes who had sought to transfer their competitive allegiance to Turkey. 11 athletes, including 4 Jamaicans, who between them hold an Olympic gold medal, an Olympic silver medal, an Olympic bronze medal, and a World Under-20 record. The panel found that the applications were part of a coordinated recruitment strategy led by Turkish government through a wholly state-owned club, offering lucrative contracts reported to be as high as US $500,000 upfront per athlete, with the explicit aim of winning medals at the Los Angeles 2028 Olympics. Caribbean sports journalist and analyst Leighton Levy now joins me to talk to us about the drama. Leighton, welcome.
Hey, good evening, guys. Well, it's nice to be here as usual.
Excitement, Leighton. Let's start first with the ruling. World Athletics Nationality Review Panel found that approving these applications of these 11, including our Jamaican 4, would what they call impinge upon and compromise the imperatives underlying the transfer of allegiance regulations. What exactly did they find, and why is a government-led recruitment strategy specifically disqualifying under these rules?
Well, look, World Athletics, like FIFA, like other global sporting governing bodies, they do not allow for governmental interference. If it was a situation where it's coming through the Turkish Athletics Association exclusively, maybe these transfers would have gone through. But given the fact that it has been exposed now, or at least World Athletics believes the case, that this is a government-funded initiative, I think disqualifies the efforts to transfer the athletes from one country to the next. And remember, it's not Jamaica alone. There are a lot of people out there who feel that Jamaica has something to do with this in a direct sense. But this is also from Russia, also from Nigeria, and of course Kenya as well. So this is not unique to Jamaica. What it is for Jamaica is that significantly there were 3 Olympic medalists in the athletes that were being recruited. But the short answer to your question is because there is this direct government involvement, albeit through a proxy, it's still the government interfering with the business of the sport.
You spoke about people believing that Jamaica was involved in that, and that's been a big discussion point. The Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association, the J3A, with their president today issued a press statement, Garth Gale, president of the J3A, saying that it is important to note that historically the J3A has never submitted any petitions to World Athletics to block athletes from transferring allegiance. They said that that position reflects our long-standing approach, as there have been previous instances of athletes seeking transfers, and the association has consistently respected the established international processes governing such requests. But these people attempted to leave. Leighton, is that a big deal?
Yeah, look, this was, in the past, we've seen people like Jakes Harvey, now called Jack Ali Harvey, transfer to Turkey. We've seen Andrew Fisher and others transfer to Bahrain. But this was the first time when there was like a raid on Jamaica's talent. 4 athletes at one point. I remember just recently, just last week actually, World Athletics released a statement about the amendments to the transfers of allegiance guidelines.
That would take effect now 2 years from now.
Yeah, that actually takes effect from March 27th. What it does is that it limits.
Hold on, March 27th this year?
Yeah.
So it is already in place, though, for people who want to, after that window, then transfer allegiance. All right?
Yeah. So what those regulations state is that you can only recruit one female, one male athlete from any one country in any 1 year.
Ooh.
That I think is in direct response to what we saw here from Jamaica, where they were trying to recruit virtually all of Jamaica's field event athletes, their field event stars.
Roger Stone, a reigning Olympic discus champion. Jaden Hibbert holds a world under-20 triple jump record.
And he's a 2-time world under-20 champion as well.
There you go. Wayne Pinnock, 2024 Olympic silver medalist. Rajendra Campbell, 2024 Olympic bronze medalist. These are not fringe athletes. Some of the other athletes, when they were going away, we were saying, there's no space here in Jamaica for you. If you're not the best, you can't stay. We understand why you're going. These now were our top athletes, Olympic medalists, and Turkey was reportedly offering them upwards of $500,000 US each. What is that fact, though, that they were willing to leave us? Tell us about where we are here, the state of our financial support for elite athletes in Jamaica.
All right, so here's the thing. Let me deal with Roger Stoner and Rajendra Campbell first. Neither athlete had a professional contract. And field eventers, especially throwers, struggle to earn money on the circuit. The thing is, for Roger Stoner, having won Olympic gold in Paris with an Olympic record, you would have thought that, maybe he could have accrued, attracted a major contract. But up to the point where news broke that he was not, he was going to leave for Turkey, he hadn't got one. Rajendra Campbell is 29 years old. He didn't have a professional contract either. For Jaden Hibbert and Wayne Pinnock, the situation is a little bit different. They had good contracts from Puma, so their situation is a little bit more, I wouldn't say confusing, because, look, they're looking forward to their long-term future. These contracts are usually 4 years old and 4 years in cycles. And there's no guarantee that after your current contract expires, that you're going to get a new one. So I can see where they're probably looking more long-term in terms of their futures. But for Roger Stoner and Rajendra Campbell, it was more immediate. What it speaks to is that I don't think, and this is something I said without fear of anybody challenging me on this, that the J3As has done some things that are good for the athletes. They have an insurance plan in conjunction with the government that allows the athletes to get medical help, covered by insurance. But in terms of support, athletes need to pay for coaches, especially if they're committed to the sport and they're not working elsewhere. They need physiotherapy, they need nutrition, they need all of these things that without help, they will not be able to afford. In the UK, for example, the athletes those athletes who are in the national program get a stipend of about £24,000 each year funded through the national lottery. Jamaica had that, but that was split up into what has become the Chase Fund. And because of that, the athletes don't get adequate support that will help them to be and to maintain their status as among the best in the world. When you're in that situation and you're not sure where your next meal is coming from, it's very easy to be tempted by a country making an offer of the magnitude that Turkey was making.
Realistically, though, this is something that I think there are few people in Jamaica with an offer of $500,000 US on the table would say, national pride keeps me. But J3A President Garth Gale has said the association holds no grudges and the doors are open. These 4 athletes were attempting to leave. Now the door to Turkey is closed. What exactly do they do now? Where do they end up?
Well, look, the first things first, they're going to make their plans to appeal. They're going to have to appeal to the National Review panel, the same panel that ruled against them, to reconsider their decision. If that doesn't work, then they have to go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The problem with that, I think, is that when you go to CAS, the same argument that I started with, that is governmental interference, the appeal might not have a leg to stand. And I'm not a lawyer, so there are other nuances.
Well, there is one sports lawyer that has already spoken about that, publicly questioning the usefulness of the appeal, going to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. What could Turkey use to challenge this? And people like Sebastian Coe were the president, calling this even at a further point in time, past point in time, human trafficking. So that's the level of what this movement has. It looks then that some hard and fast decision might actually come down now. You've talked about that change in the rules as at March 27. It looks like this might be sticky. So what do those athletes do? They come back to Jamaica? Do they go somewhere else? What happens with them?
I don't think they can go anywhere else. I think what it is now, if their appeals do not work, I think they're going to have to settle with coming back home. What that looks like is a different matter. Are they going to retire? Because there might be other opportunities that they're looking towards. I mean, maybe going on to Diamond League circuit and making some money there. But there are no guarantees. It's going to be a wait and see, because for Hibbert and Pinnock, you know, they have contracts. They're going to compete. They'll be able to resume competing for Jamaica, knowing that they have the support of a huge sponsor. For Stoner and Rajendra Campbell, not so much. So their situation is a little bit more tenuous. So it all depends on what they decided to do. Will they retire, or will they move on to other pursuits? Those are options.
And will they even have those options to consider now that they're also waiting for the Court of Arbitration for Sport after they go back to the review panel, after they do all of that? Poor thing. We're watching though, and people like you certainly help us figure out what exactly is going on. Leighton Levy, Caribbean sports analyst and journalist, thank you for joining us inside the story tonight. All right, that was a drama. All the best to you. That was all the drama of today. But we close off the show by telling you that all the discussions that we had, this was always going to happen. You cannot insulate an imported economy from an energy shock. You heard Damian King say that, Dr. Damian King say that, and we're telling you that too. And you can't do that indefinitely. The government chose to delay the pain, and now the adjustment is here. The question is whether that delay bought time or simply made the impact sharper. Because tonight, Jamaicans are being asked to do more with less, to drive less, to use less, to spend